Welcome back, everyone, to the Clock Tower Files. This is your host, Oracle.
And co-host Raven.
We are having some slight technical difficulties on our end. So if you have been looking for some of our previous episodes, like our introduction, our Wonder Woman movie review, they are missing right now. But in short order, we are going to get that taken care of and everything will be back up and running. It's been a little crazy. Oracle here has been looking for a whole new clock tower. So in the midst of trying to move and get that situated and dealing with the tech side of our podcast, we've been having a little bit of a back run here. So excuse us while we're kind of cleaning house and sorting everything out. But in the upcoming weeks, we will be back up to running order. All of our episodes will be available, and we will have a compiled and complete list of where you can find us in the very near future. But until then, we are going to do a mini episode here on the Clock Tower Files. We are going to be looking at the very first standalone issue of Black Canary Oracle Birds of Prey. That was released in 1996. Written by Chuck Dixon, art by Gary Frank, inks by John Dell, and then colors by the wonderful Sherilyn Van Valkenburg. I so butchered your name. I'm so sorry, Sherilyn. And yeah, so this is the very first time Oracle and Black Canary team up to be what is now known as the Birds of Prey. So again, just like the last time, I've read this issue probably 100 times.
And I have not.
I have an unfair advantage just because I started Birds of Prey so long ago. I started in really 2003.
Yes.
Pretty much as soon as that show was canceled, I tried to grab as many Birds of Prey books as I could.
Yeah.
So from 2003 on, I have just
Meanwhile, I was into the Teen Titans at that time, so
I've been committing these things to memory and rereading them over and over and over. So I have an unfair advantage. And one day, too, once we get through some of this, we will get to the Teen Titans for those of you out there who are like, so we have Raven on the show, but why do we never actually talk about Raven? We will get there. We're just working our way through some of the main Birds of Prey, and then we're going to start branching out.
Yeah, and then we can branch out from there because that's what the Birds of Prey really are. That's what they kind of represent, is not just Oracle, Black Canary, and Huntress.
That's true.
You know, they have a whole team, and you could basically bring in anybody at that point. Male or female again, not just the females.
Not just the females.
But for a standalone issue, I thought it was very good.
And yeah, not only a standalone, but really an introduction of the theme. You know, this has not been seen before.
And this is 96.
Yes,
right?
this is 96. This is the first time not only they team up, but, and again, I'm not a true comic historian, but as long as I know, there has been no other female team book where this was designed to be a team. Even here in this standalone issue, this was a team. It wasn't just, we're going to work together and, just happenstance. This was a team. Oracle, from the beginning of this concept, was trying to build a team. So this really is the first time we really get a female team with a female leader who is building a team. And of course this leads to an ongoing series and miniseries and all sorts of stuff. But I truly think A-Force on Marvel and Birds of Prey is the only all-female team or predominantly female team that's been in publication and stuck to that concept of, where they started at. So yeah, not only is it a first issue, but it's a first issue pitching an all-female team, which, as we've kind of discussed, like with Wonder Woman, there is this bizarre, stereotype, this bizarre belief that, men especially will not buy and throw money at, female lead anything. Which, again, not only is Wonder Woman a brilliant example of how that's not true, but so is the Birds of Prey, because at least Wonder Woman has the backing of being not only a long-standing hero, but is now a big blockbuster movie, where the Birds of Prey in 1996 were really kind of two forgotten characters. So the fact that they've managed to outlast so many others and survive and keep coming back in even new reincarnations is, saying something, that these two, again, kind of forgotten characters, kind of B-list characters that are so quickly brushed off as sidekicks in a lot of ways. Batgirl's just part of the Bat family, and Black Canary is just the arm candy of Green Arrow. Not only that they can stand on their own, but they are something that people are actually interested in seeing. So what do you think about that cover? Looking at that cover, Oracle floating there with her in the tower with her bat.
Well, because I've read a lot of Gail Simone stuff. So, and so the artistry is different. And so I kind of like this little bob that she's got, that Oracle has going on here.
Yeah,
I do.
I'm trying to think in Suicide Squad if her hair is longer or not. And I think it kind of varies from artist to artist, because I know there's a really iconic cover of Suicide Squad where Oracle is on it, and there's the bat symbol behind her, and she's in her wheelchair, and I think her hair is longer.
Okay.
But sometimes I think it is shorter. But early Birds of Prey and pretty much up until actually Gail Simone takes over, she has short hair. So it's interesting.
Which, I kind of prefer the short hair, in all honesty. Because, I have read some, not all of it. Okay, listen, I'm not Oracle expert here, but I have read some of it. But yeah, I do like the shorter hair. For some reason, it just works better for me. And maybe it just symbolizes the actual change instead of her being, Batgirl still. But there is a little bit of a Batgirl.
Yes,
also
you always,
in the cover.
yeah, they do love to remind you that, that Oracle was Batgirl. That's never too far from their mind. And I think they want it never too far from our mind. Which I'm glad, well, again, this is the first time, we see this. So it makes sense that they kind of reinforce that. As the series goes on, you do get it a little less, especially in the Chuck Dixon run. It does become more focused on the mission. What is our present problem? We don't constantly get reminded. But it does. It's like the origin curse of every superhero. Every time there's a new book, every time there's a new mini, it's like, let's remind everyone exactly where this character came from.
Which, is good if you don't know anything, but if you're like a consistent reader,
it gets so boring. Like, how many times have we seen Batman and the pearls? The little boy with the pearls in the dark alley. Like, we've seen that so many times. The origin stuff just gets really boring. So yeah, I have to remind myself that this is the very first time we are seeing this, so it makes sense we keep getting that. This is Batgirl. This is Batgirl.
And they kind of hit you hard a little bit at the end with it, but
with that big speech she gives.
Which I thought was interesting. Again, I don't know how close these two have actually worked. It seemed like the first time, because it was like their first team up. So for Oracle just to be like, and by the way, this is who I used to be, I'm like, what are you doing?
Yes, actually. This is really the first time they've worked together. There's been a few times where that's, again, wonderful comic continuity again, where it's kind of blurred. Like, there's been many occasions where they've kind of been in the same room or in the same place at the same time, but they never really worked together. And then even in the Black Canary mini-series, there was the 4-issue mini, and then there was the 12-issue ongoing. In that 12-issue ongoing, Oracle actually ends up helping save Black Canary. She coordinates Huntress teaming up with Nightwing to go save her. So that's technically the first time, but they never actually speak or, but a fun, odd little nod that Oracle ends up setting up that will save Canary in her own book. And then years later, they end up teaming up together. But, really, this is the first time. And of course, the rewritten Batgirl Year One, which we just covered, helps lay the groundwork that they've worked together before. But that is a rewrite of the future.
Yeah.
So really, this is the first time. They are not friends. They don't know each other. They haven't teamed up together. There's no Batgirl, Black Canary long history of running around together. And two, Oracle's still so new that no one else knows she really exists, let alone knows that she was ever Batgirl or connected to Batman. She is still a kind of this hacker urban legend almost.
Yeah. And then, of course, also on the cover, we have the Black Canary kicking butt.
And this fun note is the first time we see this costume. This is the Birds of Prey costume. This is the first time we ever see it. It's kind of lovingly called the scuba costume because it does kind of look like a scuba suit. And then later in the Chuck Dixon run, she does get legs, pants basically. And it does further look like a wetsuit. But yeah, I like Oracle on the cover. I'm glad they show Canary kicking butt with the Green Brotherhood guys. But it's as much as I like it, it's not a terribly striking cover.
No, it's not.
Not
at all.
If you were walking, into the comic shop and you just saw this on the shelf, it's not super attention grabbing.
Well, because there's not, at least nowadays, there's not a, not bold colors really on it. It's very muted.
Yeah, it really is. Because you don't even really get to see Black Canary's, costume very well. And too, with, obviously it says Black Canary and Oracle on the top. But again, this is the first time we're ever seeing this. And if you didn't know,
you don't know who these characters are.
Black Canary looks so drastically different from what we've, the fishnet look, basically. You would not be able to instantly peg this as the Black Canary.
Especially with short hair, too.
Yeah, also short hair. Everyone has short hair in the...
I don't know, but because not to say that I'm not used to the Canary having, long hair or anything, but that's just how I've always pictured her to have longer hair than what is being shown in here.
Because she has always had long hair.
Yeah.
Well, because she's always wearing that wig, so under the wig she usually has short hair.
Which is what she ends up dyeing.
And that's what we see. Yeah, exactly. But I like the cover, but not a terribly striking cover.
Yeah.
But I do like, I think Oracle is very strong because she's just so piercing staring at you, so maybe that's the real dramatic effect of the cover, that Oracle is just peering right into your soul. And then I know you're looking at the trade, so you don't get the cover text.
Oh, yeah,
but it does also have some situations require a woman's touch. The two is I like it, but it's also a little heavy-handed too. It's just
Well, again, this is sort of their first, female, so of course they're going to put something cheesy that onto the cover.
That's true. Okay, let's move on. I feel like we've badgered the poor listeners with our cover rant. So we kind of open with first an introduction of a small country that has gotten the assistance of Nick Devine, who's going to be our main villain, basically, of the story. And then we just kind of see that the situations that Nick Devine sets up tend to end badly.
Yeah.
And then we move right into our introduction of Black Canary.
With her classic little getup.
Yes, her classic getup, long blonde hair. I do like the odd country vibe that they decided to go with, the fringe jacket and the cowboy boots. It's classic yet casual version of her costume and very country influence. But which is odd, but I kind of like it. Like part of me really does like the fringe jacket, and part of me hates it all at the same time.
Well, even though this was written in 96, do we know what time this is actually supposed to be taking place?
I
Like
think
what?
it's still technically present time,
It's
so
still
it would be
okay.
90,
Okay.
the 90s, even in story.
I could see the 70s.
Yeah.
I could see this definitely in the 70s.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing about Black Canary, which our next episode is going to be Black Canary focused. But since it's hard not to talk about the Black Canary and the Birds of Prey, so but Black Canary does always have this kind of vintage vibe about her. Not necessarily her personality so much, but her look. Just looking at her visually, there's always kind of a throwback style to her. And it's just interesting that, yeah, and I think the country vibes here really do nod to the 70s, where sometimes you'll look at her and it's very 50s or it's very even 60s. And yeah, the design choices, the costume choices with the fringe and the cowboy boots make her very country, but also make her even her glasses choice. The circle glasses are also very throwback 70s. So yeah, it's just interesting that the air of the Canary constantly has a retro vibe. It just kind of, I think, comes down to the artist on which era we end up vibing with. But she does always have a really
stylized look.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And always reminiscent of some era, if not always a consistent era, but she is always very much, an era. And I also really like that our introduction to the Canary is true to her. She's always been kind of a street level person, a level character, a street fighter character. So it's kind of perfect that we meet her at a car mugging and she just completely decimates these boys for trying to carjack her. And I really like the art here. Like whoever was the idea to pick who is it, Gary Frank? Yeah, Gary Frank. Whoever decided to pick Gary Frank for this job was really smart, because the 90s were, and you still get that 90s vibe from the art itself, but usually the 90s is so hard edged and just like really dark. And it is dark, but it's still very soft and fluid. It doesn't have that like gritty hard edge of the 90s. But it's still very obviously 90s. But it was a wise choice, because like I think if you went for a gritty, harder, dark 90s, I don't think the book would have translated as well.
And maybe they didn't do that because they were females.
They very well could have.
Yeah. Because, with Batman, they would have.
Yeah, that's true. Batman would have looked like a vampire. He would have been full shadow, big giant cape, lurking in the shadows, glowing eyes. So yeah, whoever decided to pick Gary Frank, really good decision, because the art is so clearly 90s, so it's of the time, but it's still super pretty, and even though dark and like heavy blacks, it's everything's still super clear. There's no question on what you're looking at, and it's not bathed in black, but you still get that heavy 90s black that is so prominent of the era. And two, we also get a really nice setup of how big of a disaster the Black Canary's life is.
Yeah.
And I think at this time, again, I'm a little, we threw this podcast together at the last minute, so I didn't research the timeline as well as I would have for another episode. But I'm pretty sure she had just broken up with Ollie, or I think he had already died.
So yeah, because I did read in another one that I wasn't supposed to read.
Yes.
That he was dead in that one. So I didn't know if that also translated into this one.
I think he is dead at this time. I do know she ends up leaving him because he ends up cheating on her, or I don't even know if it's technically cheating. Like I would have took it as cheating, but he ends up making out with Marianne, who is the You naughty, naughty text message. I forgot I usually put this on silent. But that's Oracle. Too much tech going on at one time. But yeah, in the Green Arrow book, he ends up making out with like her floral assistant or something, her flower shop assistant, and she leaves him. And I don't know if this is right after she leaves him or after she leaves him, he then dies, and this is after he's dead. But that is why she's separate from Green Arrow currently. And why
because she does have a picture of her and Ollie together. Well, they're Black Canary and Green Arrow in this particular picture, but it is right by her phone.
Yeah.
So he might be dead because I think she might feel a little mad.
That's true.
You know?
But then again, the Black Canary is so... Even when she's furious at Ollie, she's still so tied up in Ollie.
Yeah.
So she would still be furious and still be, like, lovingly gazing at his picture.
She could, but then...
but I think he is dead.
Oracle contacts her, and she flat out leaves her wig, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know if she's trying to just find, like, a new identity. Obviously, she needs the money. She's broke. Yeah. But, you know, like, trying to delve a little deeper, she's probably like, I just need to completely remove myself from the situation and anything to get me out of this.
I definitely agree. I think that's a really good observation that she relieves the wig, because I never really thought about it in, like, a thematic way. I always thought their decision to get rid of it was just purely aesthetic. Like, the wig is an old idea. The wig is a boring concept. She's been doing it, you know, for however many years at this point. Well, crap, the character then was gotta be close to... Gotta be close to 40 years old. 45 years old.
Yeah.
And she's been wearing a wig through all the incarnations. So I just took it as a like, oh, we're just ditching this old concept. But to actually think about it in a thematic way, that she's ditching the wig because she's kind of lost herself a little bit, I never actually really thought of. Even though I've thought about it in other respects.
Yeah.
Especially to this book. Because, and that too, Oracle so clearly points out multiple times that your life is a disaster and your profile needs work and you lack pretty much all direction and are completely floundering. Like, that's so clearly stated, so it's obvious, you know, that she needs an update. But yeah, I never thought that and that is such a good point. And she leaves it on, which too I never thought about. You just, oh my gosh, boom, I know. You just completely made me notice something that I never really thought about. And I've read this book 100 times. Because she even leaves the wig on the picture of Green Arrow and Black Canary. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that is such a brilliant observation, Raven. I never thought of that.
That's why it keeps me around. Yeah. Sometimes I have those moments.
That is such a good idea. It really is. It's like, yeah, I need to kind of escape my past a little bit. I need to kind of go out on my own. Wow, I never thought of that. Who knew that little wig and picture?
I know. It's a lot is being said in this one little page here, which
it really is.
Yeah.
Then we do another flash because we're still introducing all of our characters. We're now completely introduced to Nick Devine. First, we were just introduced to one of Nick Devine's projects. Now we're introduced to Nick Devine himself promoting one of his projects. And so when I was reading this and the guy comes up to attack him, which we see at the bottom of this panel, and then the next page, two men now are completely attacking Nick Devine.
Yeah.
Did you think it was a complete setup, that these were like guys he probably beats up on the regular to like show that he's a badass? Or did you think he was actually skilled enough to defeat them? Like, did you think they were genuine assassins, or were they like for show?
I never thought that they weren't, but he does seem like a show. Now that you say it, he does seem like a showman. And I mean, he's able to defeat them pretty easily.
Yeah, I always just thought it was yeah, just like a showing that, oh, this character is capable of fighting.
Yeah.
But when I reread it yesterday, I was like, oh my God, this is another thing. I read this so many times, and the first time I thought of it, I was like, holy cow, I bet you these dudes are plants.
And they totally could be.
And I never thought about it until reading it last night.
Yeah, that is interesting. I never thought of it like that before. I mean, but yeah, like, no need to applaud, folks.
Yeah.
You know, it's just a little bit of demonstration. Yeah, totally showman. I bet you Oracle's like, give me a break. She ain't falling for it. I did, though.
Yeah, I did too.
Because I didn't think of it like that. Yeah.
Well, I always read it as, because, we've never met this character before. We have no idea who this guy is. He's clearly not a costumed, villain of any kind. I just always thought it was there to show that he was at least formidable.
Yeah.
But last night, again, because that too, I've never really read these in the sense that I was going to ever review them. These were all for pleasure. Now reading it through the lens of, okay, I'm breaking down these characters and I'm looking at these stories and what are they actually doing in front of me. Looking at it last night, I was like, this is totally a con. This is just a con and a con.
Yeah.
And he's totally getting those people to eat out of, the palm of his hand.
Yeah. But because I didn't know that, I didn't really know that about him in the beginning, because again, I haven't read this 500 times. Yeah, I didn't get that. But yeah, looking back at it now, I can totally see all of this stuff being a setup. And just for show, because that's what he does. Yep. He does everything for show. He tries to make everything seem like it's hunky-dory. He's the best at what he does. So, of course, he can beat up bad guys.
Yeah. I know. I never thought of it until last night. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I missed this all this time.
Wow. Oh, that's a good point.
And then we get our first real view of Oracle. Mm-hmm. She gets a full page spread, which I kind of think is nice that even Canary didn't get a full page spread, but Oracle gets a full page completely dedicated to her and her computers and the little bit of setup we see of the early version of the clock tower. The one thing I don't like about the 90s...
Or the floppy disks, I know.
Oh,
right?
I don't mind the floppy disk, because this is at least of the time. But they always make Oracle look really frumpy. She's always like in a sweater. She's always like... Always.
You're right, but...
The whole 90s, the early run of Birds of Prey, it's not until much later in the ongoing itself when she starts to dress a little more fashionably. And I don't know if that's just a decision that someone finally was like, the girl in the wheelchair can look pretty, or if, and I'm probably giving them way too much credit, or if it's just a talk of, Oracle's character that, she's coming from tragedy and, doesn't feel that great. And the more she builds her team and builds this friendship with Canary, she starts to kind of show herself again.
That's what I would more so go for, and not...
I think we're giving them too much credit, honestly.
Probably, but that's the way that I
would prefer to, I'd prefer to think of it that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember even, because again, my intro was to the TV show, and Oracle was dressed always, somewhat fashionably, sometimes sporty. Like when she was in the clock tower, it was, much more sporty. Yeah. But when she was out and about, she was always very fashionable. And then the show was canceled and I started reading these books, and she was always in this giant sweater all the time.
Yeah, I mean, the sweater does look like ginormous on her.
Yeah, she's always in these like really boring, really frumpy clothes. They're always kind of oversized.
Yeah.
It always drove me a little crazy. And sometimes, like, when you saw her throughout the series, you'd see her full body in, the wheelchair. And, like, she'd be wearing, like, these ugly, like, floods. Like, her pants were, like, way too short. You would see her socks. And I'm like, okay, this is so unfair, because just because you are in a wheelchair does not mean you cannot be fashionable. Yeah. Does not mean you instantly stop caring about what you look like, So it always drove me crazy that they just always frumped Oracle up to no end. And yeah, I'd like to pretend and think that it was because it was her just kind of coming back to herself, and she does progressively get more fashionable. Yeah. So I'd like to think it's the rediscovering of herself, but I think it might be from this kind of stereotypical, like, oh, girls in wheelchairs can't be pretty.
Yeah.
Because she's always in these drastically oversized sweaters, and even the action figure, they finally get an action figure and she's still wearing pants that are way too short, and she's like in a really weird big blue sweater. Like, who wants to play with that action figure?
I know. Poor Barbara.
I know. I'm so glad she gets more fashionable. And you also still get the hint of that I'm Batgirl, because her toy, her Batgirl doll is still there. Don't forget, this is Batgirl.
Yeah. Just in case there was any doubt, it's there.
And then, again, a nice little setup that she's still close with her dad. Yeah. And in this timeline and in this period, he has retired, I believe, from the role of commissioner.
So he's bored and he wants to do stuff, and his daughter is busy. Can you believe it? Kids these days.
I know. No time for the parents.
I do like how he's like, oh, do you have plans? A date? Please find some nice boy.
He's preferably not Nightwing. I like you just know he's like, please don't be Robin. Like, and she's like, not really. Then we jump back to Black Canary, who I love is which Gail Simone makes reference to this in her run much, much later in the game. But I love that she runs around in her costume so kind of brazen. Like, she totally doesn't care.
Yeah.
And it's not addressed here at all, but at least Gail Simone addresses it. But I find it interesting that, she just doesn't care. Like,
I know. Well, I mean, it's evident also later on. She just flat out uses her real name, like, all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, what are code names?
Yeah. That's one thing, like, and I guess too, again, I have to keep in mind that, that too, which always bothered me, James Bond. James Bond runs around all over on all of his missions telling him that his name is James Bond.
Yeah.
And that always drove me crazy because why didn't he have a code name? And of course he has 007 as a code name, but you can't use that in conversation. Yeah. Like, oh, hello, I'm 007. What? That's stupid. But he never has like a cover name, and he never has an actual code name that you can use in the field. And Canary at least has a code name, but it's funny that all these secret agents do just run around telling their names. And two, Canary at this time is such a low tier character. I always have to remind myself that too. This is 1996. Even though she has been a member of the Justice League and Justice Society and all that, she's still always viewed as this forgotten person. Yeah. So she doesn't. And two, also, she's wrapped herself up in superheroic so much that she doesn't have a civilian identity.
That is true, I guess.
She sort of has a flower shop sometimes. And then even again, at this point, this is after the Green Arrow series. So Ollie might be dead. They might just be separated. But at the end of that, so I can't remember how, but her florist shop in Seattle does get destroyed. So she doesn't even have that at this point. So not only is she in debt and has no friends or life, she also doesn't even have she doesn't even have the flower shop to fall back on. So she really has like, I only have to be the Black Canary. That's all I've got. So she doesn't even have a life separate from it. She just is Black Canary. But I find it always interesting. And she even makes fun at like reference of it too. Like, oh, all of Gotham knows my name. Well, you're running around in a fishnet costume. Like,
sharing your name with everybody.
Yeah, so. Telling everyone your name anyway. So it's funny, the kind of dual irony of secret identity with her.
At least Oracle knows how to keep a secret identity. She's Louise. Someone has to run here.
Yeah.
So then she gets to her
hotel room.
She finds a whole bunch of stuff and things because Oracle's on top of it.
Yeah.
She got a tape that she can listen to if anybody still knows what a tape is. In the VCR. Sort of explaining the situation about what's going on, and she gets her little brooch or her necklace.
Yes, this
and
too is the first time we ever see the Comset jewelry, which I am absolutely obsessed with. And if I ever get DC, hire me, please. If you ever hire me, if I ever get to work for DC and I ever get my hands on Black Canary, the Comset jewelry is coming back.
Yes.
Because it kind of goes in and out. But definitely the end of Gail Simone's run and all of current Birds of Prey, so the new 52 up to Rebirth, there's no Comset jewelry. It needs to come back.
Yeah.
That is one of my favorite things. I love that Comset jewelry.
It's still very spy-ish, you know?
Very spy. Yeah. That's a good point. I just love anything that you can take that would be passed off as mundane.
Yes.
And it has a dual purpose. I just love dual purpose items. So to have the Comset jewelry is just, ugh. It might be my favorite thing of the Birds of Prey. I love that Comset jewelry. And then we get to see some of the clothes Oracle picked out for her, which I'd kind of actually love to see the everyday stuff that's in that closet, especially since Oracle just wears giant sweaters.
Well, apparently she's very fashionable, just not for herself. Okay?
I know, which I find very interesting. And again, maybe they really were thinking, she just, her life has just been ruined. She's lost the use of her legs. She's kind of in a depression, which we do see in Oracle Year 1. So maybe she is just kind of like, I don't feel like myself anymore.
Yeah. And that does happen.
And
not just to people who are stuck in wheelchairs,
no, totally.
But like in general. Something gets you down, you just pull over a little hoodie, sweater, whatever you want, and you're just like, I'm going out just like this because you know what? F it. Like
I don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's very true. I just usually don't give enough credit for especially for men, especially straight men who write women, I don't usually give them enough credit to have that forethought to background character that. But
you don't know. Who was a female going, you know what you should happen?
But I would like to see the other clothes that Oracle picked out for her. But we just see the evening gown and then of course the hint of a new costume. Which again, it was a big deal to ditch the fishnets.
Was it?
Yeah. She had done it once before. Well, that's not true. There's always been Canary, if you ever look into the history of Canary costumes, there's been 100 of them. Most of them are variations of the fishnet look. But every now and then she does get a whole new costume. But they don't last very long, and it's almost within story, and it never catches on anywhere else.
Yeah. The
only time it really happened where it was a consistent appearance is her 80s Justice League look with the headband and the big lapels of the bird feather like wings and the blue and black, where she really, which I hate too, because she's always compared to Mockingbird from Marvel, and everyone always says that Canary is a ripoff of Mockingbird, which is not true because Canary predates her by a bit. But that suit just makes her look like a knockoff of Mockingbird. So that was a big change with no fishnet and no, kind of traditional sexy look. And, it lasted a little bit and appeared in other books. But like in Green Arrow, she does get like a full body suit and, but it never lasts. No one ever notices those. And then again, not until Black Canary in The Birds of Prey, where she gets a suit that's not fishnet, not terribly sexy, and actually lasts for numbers of years and actually gets to go into other books. But yeah, it's always really noticeable when the Black Canary ditches the fishnets because it's so not
iconic.
Her iconic look. And Chuck Dixon was very like adamant, like we have to get her out of the fishnets, because it was kind of like cheesy and kind of sexy and silly, and funny enough, it's there was like a panel that multiple writers of Birds of Prey were on, and like all the women, Gail especially, were like, we need to keep the fishnets, and like some of the men were like, we need to ditch the fishnets, which I find ironic. You think it'd be the other way around. And I personally am always a big reference to the classic. So of anything, anything, not just Birds of Prey, not just Black Canary, you name it. I always love to reference, the origins of things, where they came from. So I'm always a big proponent for keeping the fishnets or an element of the fishnets somewhere in the look, as long as they make sense. That too, like the new 52 version, I hated. Yeah. Like they reference the fishnets, but I hate that.
In the wrong way.
Yeah. And what about you? What are your feelings on the fishnets as a female?
I honestly don't wear fishnets a lot, but I think for certain characters you can get away with it because it goes with them, like Black Canary. And I don't know if her mom also wore. She did. Okay. She wore fishnets too. So again, you gotta keep some of those traditions. That's what they are, traditions, and you gotta keep them up. Yeah. So like for Black Canary, I don't see anything wrong with that. I know Zatanna in the new 52 also had fishnets.
She had fishnet sleeves. Fishnet glove things.
She did. I didn't mind those. Those were okay for me. Probably because she's a magic user and you can do whatever you want.
Magic users can get away with so much more in the costume department. And I see the argument against the fishnets as a fighting character.
Yes. As a fighting character, they don't quite make sense because you're gonna have to go out and buy them all the time because they're gonna get ripped and whatnot. Although it's not really practical. Yeah. But they're traditional. Yeah. You gotta get steel fishnets. Yeah.
I know, they just have to be like cut proof, like some military grade fishnet. That's all we need.
That's all you needed. Why didn't anybody think of that?
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, I don't mind the fishnets. But I don't know, it's nice to see that they were like, maybe we should get rid of them and try something different at the same time.
I definitely do appreciate too the experimentation for something new, because that too, sometimes you need to update a character no matter how iconic the origin look is. But yeah, it's always a great debate though. There seems to be very strict camps of, should Canary have fishnets, should she not have fishnets? We all know her suit's not terribly practical. That's no secret. But it is a comic, but yeah, I always favor the kind of classic look. And I don't know, like I've like if we've discussed before, I listen to lots of podcasts and lots of people, and of course of my interest. And so it always interests me when people are against the traditional Black Canary look, and I'm so for it. But seems to be the big argument. The two big arguments always seem to be it's impractical and it's like too like sexy, and not too sexy in the sense that it's visually too sexy, but like everyone just compares it to a hooker. She looks like a streetwalker.
Well, that's how she's able to actually wear that stuff around and not really.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's true. Like, if you're skulking around in the dead of night on the street, as she would, you're dressed like a hooker. It makes more sense that you're out at night running around in dark alleys. Like, you blend in a lot better than if you were wearing a, purple vinyl unitard, like with a cape. Like, or like a neon yellow outfit, like that just doesn't make as much sense as and two, you look at the history of the Black Canary character, and she, even though the stories never necessarily match up to this, but the concept of her is she always was kind of an espionage agent. She was an infiltrator. She would kind of sneak into these villain areas, these bad guys, these mobs, whatever the case, drug dealers, gun runners, whatever. she would infiltrate them and kind of and they actually do, as much as I don't like her portrayal in the Green Arrow books, they do a good job of this, that she ends up kind of faking being like the arm candy of one of these mob guys. That's how she gets in.
Yeah.
So again, it makes sense that she dresses more provocatively because she's trying to get these mob guys interested in her so she can go behind the block, the locked doors, so she can get into where their their walls are down and their secrets exposed. And fishnets are a good tool.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's always interesting when people are like, oh, it's too sexy, or I don't like it. I always like to know why. Because I'm a big fan of it. And too, it also comes down to how it's drawn. Like this one is much more tastefully drawn than like when her leg cuts are, up to her armpits, but that's even true about, Wonder Woman. Her bikini briefs all of a sudden turn into a thong, and it's like, that's not quite the same, quite the same look. But yeah, the classic look in this is drawn much more conservatively than in other appearances. So yeah, I think that really depends on the costume as well. So moving right along with our poor story, I tend to talk about costume. I can talk about costumes forever. Oracle sends Black Canary into the lion's den of a gala to raise money, get investors of the Gotham elite, and we get a brief appearance of Bruce Wayne. I would have loved to have been able to read Bruce's mind.
Yeah.
Because he would know the Black Canary is there. And I'm always curious, does he know that she's working with Oracle? Does he know that this is an Oracle operation? Because we get no idea. He's there for 2 seconds and he leaves. And there's really no indication that he even notices Dinah, let alone thinks about her or the fact that she's on a mission or anything. But I always wonder, did he know?
Yeah. He could have, but I mean, he's very perceptive, but at the same time, she could have been somewhere else in a different room or whatever's going on.
That's true too. Yeah, they could have too just completely missed each other. He could have just left, she could have just arrived, which is kind of set up here that we don't actually see her until he leaves. But I always wonder about that. So, and I was even here, actually, just saying that Black Canary is, an infiltrator of these bad guys. She does it here even. I'm busy running my mouth and not even paying attention to what I'm saying.
I was like, yeah, you're totally on point for what's coming up in the story.
Whoops. Well, that just shows to show you I know the characters so well. But yeah, here she is doing it now. She's looking pretty with her leg slit up to her elbow. And she's working the room to try and get the bad guy to let her into behind closed doors. And it works.
Yeah.
Because then 2 seconds later, we are introduced to his bodyguard, Lynx, who is the queen of the Chinese mobs of Gotham. And we are not only hearing secrets dealings with Lynx and the president of, or the general, I can't remember.
I think it was the general?
Yeah, the general. General Mambara, that's right. I had to double check. And then, of course, we get the introduction of the Green, the Green Brotherhood. And then one of my favorite things in this set of pages is when Lynx is trying to ID her fighting styles based off her moves.
Yeah.
I like that, and that too, that's kind of like a reoccurring theme with martial arts characters in general, that whenever they run into another martial arts character, they kind of peacock and, try and ID, who's the better fighter and where did they learn and train, but this is just kind of a nice nod to that kind of trope of martial arts characters.
Yeah. And I don't know, there was something suspicious about Lynx that automatically made me think you're just about. I mean, even though she's hanging out with the bad guys, but
Yeah.
like she's still a bad guy herself, like separate from
Yeah.
from what's going on. There was something within these few pages that I was like, extra bad guy.
What always tipped me off is weird. Is you're literally the leader of the Chinese mobs. Why would you be working as a
Yeah.
bodyguard?
Yeah.
You would have like your own bodyguard. You wouldn't be a bodyguard. So I know that always tipped me off. And I was like, why would you be like moonlighting as a bodyguard when you run all of the Chinese mobs? So I always thought that was a little suspicious, which of course plays out to why it's suspicious later. But I always thought like that's really weird that we make such a big deal of, you know, mentioning that you're so powerful. So yeah, why are you doing like an underling job? And it doesn't help that she looks like a pirate.
I know, she only has one eye.
It just adds to the I'm gonna cause you trouble later look.
And poor Canary's dress gets
destroyed. And then of course Nick Devine offers her a job.
And of course she's like, heck yes, I can get paid. And then I also just like the little stuff with Oracle about how even though she's still on call 24/7, she's still doing her own thing.
Yeah, she just drags that speakerphone everywhere she goes.
Yeah. So kind of nice. I mean, she's still getting exercise and all that stuff. Just to show that she's serious and not just like, oh, I'm just sitting in a wheelchair doing nothing.
And the next page where you see Dinah and Oracle discussing Divine, I always have to laugh because we all know he's a bad guy. And
I know.
Canary's still like, well, he's kind of attractive. Like, I still might kind of do him. Like, and it's just like, oh, Dinah. Oh,
yeah.
Can't pick the right guy to save her life. Just can't do it.
Then I go back with another meeting.
Yep, more meeting with Nick Devine.
Yeah. Don't worry, I got this.
Yeah, everything's gonna be fine. You saw me beat up those assassins. I could totally do this.
And then Canary shows up for work in her new outfit.
Yes, the full reveal of the scuba suit.
Kind of cool because she has the little logo.
Yeah, I like the
belt.
logo.
Yeah.
And I do actually like, I don't like the arm yellow band so much,
but cars can see her at night.
But I do like the rib padding. Like, I think that's really smart. And I think I might like it more there because it's just not as much.
Yeah.
But I do like the little yellow padding, the gold padding on her rib cage. I just think it's smart. Maybe if there's just one or two less on her arm, I might like it a little more. And this suit is always colored really green and blue, but I'd always like to see it actually in black. Like, what would that translate to? Like, if we made this suit in real life, what would that look like in black?
I just imagined that it was black, even though
I'm sure it's supposed to be black. I'm sure it goes in the traditional comic coloring that if we just colored this black, it would be too black. Yeah. So we have to do blues and greens, just like Batman. But yeah, I'd like to see it in real life in an actual, leather and a real suit made. Mm-hmm. What would that look like? Yeah. I think it would be actually kind of sharp.
I think so too. Especially if we change it to gold.
Yeah.
Instead of the yellow. Then we got some more little cat fighting over here.
Yeah, the tension between Lynx and Dinah is always really nice.
Yeah. And then, Nick's just trying to make himself sound even more fantastic. I'm their
Yes,
feel-good
he
client.
is.
I am so pompous about myself.
Yes, he is the king of self-compliments. Like,
And in all honesty, he kind of reminds me of Gaston a little bit.
I never thought of that, but he looks like him. He acts like him. That's so true. I never thought of that.
Yeah, it was very much a Gaston character for me.
Oh my God, he is. No one destroys third world countries like Gaston.
That is so true. And I know we didn't mention it in some of the previous panels, but I just like how Oracle's just like, what a pig. Like,
Yes, yeah. I was distracted by Dinah being obsessed with him.
Yeah.
Thinking Nick was so attractive. But yeah, it's true. Oracle's just not having it at every turn. She's just like, give me a break. He's a pig. What a jerk. And here's Dinah over here with and I'm fully aware she's not completely, blinded by him.
Yeah.
But she does. She definitely has a soft spot for guys who are dicks. And just, I love how Oracle's so instantly just like, this is all BS.
Yeah.
None of this is affecting me at all.
You get to see people dying.
Yep.
That part's always sad. Although it's a very beautiful place.
Yes, it's very pretty.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful country. Too bad Nick is going to help blow it up and drown it.
And you get to see some more nods about what happened with...
Don't forget, this is Batgirl.
Yeah, this is Batgirl. Don't forget, this is what happened to her. This is what happened to her.
And I really like, just as an artist, that they play off Oracle's, or in these pages in particular, not always, but she's in these cool colors and Canary's in these warm colors. Like, I love the jump between the two. It just illustrates too so well that they're so far apart. They're definitely in different spaces right now. Then we finally get to see Black Canary in full mission mode, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, she's kicking butt. And then actually, it was probably like these panels where I was like, when did she dye her hair? And I had to go back and I saw the little bottle. Yes. I was like, oh. I was like, what? There's bombs. Canary's like, oh no, I have to stop the bombs. And then all of a sudden, Link shows back up.
We figure out that there truly is more to this plot than just the Green Brotherhood destroying Nick Divine's stuff, but Lynx is involved.
And then, Oracle's trying to be helpful, and then Canary's just like, get bent! Like, leave me alone, I got this, I don't need you. So they have a little tussle. I do like all the little fighting scenes and stuff like that.
Yeah, the fight scenes are really strong in this book. And you did bring up an interesting point before we got on air that Lynx does seem very tough in this fight.
Yeah, she does. She seems very powerful, and she's obviously able to escape from Dinah and then also still kill her.
Yeah, not only kill her minions, but then she also blows up the dam and destroys the whole village below.
So she's definitely a force to be reckoned with, at least in this initial fight that we get to see her actually in. And then, of course, Canary's like, I'm out for the count. I can't do this. And Oracle's like, I ain't having this. And this is sort of the part where she's just like, I'm Batgirl.
Yeah.
Which, again, to me, I was like, this is very strange why you would be giving her any sort of indication that that's who you are. If this was truly, like, their first team up, pair up together, that part was very strange to me. But maybe she felt somehow justified enough to be like, I trust you enough to tell you.
I think she trusts her enough to hint at it. And I think it really bothers her that Dinah is so easily, succumbing to her own self-pity here. I think that just fires her, just ticks her off so much that she... she's like, again, like, you don't know what it's like to have self-pity. you know. You think your life is tough. And actually, in all fairness, you know, Dinah's life was really tough, you know, because it's actually never covered in this book, where like we constantly get hints to the Joker and the Killing Joke and Oracle and Batgirl and that story. We get hints to it a lot, but we get zero reference that Dinah was ever kidnapped, beaten, cut up, and that's why she never has a canary cry in this book. Because in the Green Arrow series, that mission I was actually talking about, where she's snuggling up to the bad guys, that's where her cover gets blown. I can't remember how, and the leader of the group, also in a kind of highly sexual attack, ends up stripping her down to like a men's t-shirt and ties her up, and he ends up cutting her up so badly that she loses the ability to have children, and she completely loses the canary cry. And that's never mentioned once in this book.
Touched on at all.
But so it's funny because, again, in this context, Oracle's speech actually does make sense, but when you think about it, it's actually a little unfair. Yes, she got out more unscathed than Barbara did of her attack, but it's actually not that the two attacks weren't that dissimilar in a lot of ways.
Yeah, they are relatively similar, other than the fact that Canary has
able-bodied, yeah. And too, maybe that's the point, you know, also, you know, like you think, you know, your situation was bad, you can still do this. You can do what you want. I had to change my methods because I can no longer, and it's not even I can't because I've been attacked. It's I can't because it was taken from me. Where she may not have a canary cry anymore, but she still has her years and years of training and martial arts skill. And I think that's, you know, what kind of ticks Oracle off a little bit there. That you know, you may not have the cry, and you may think that, you know, you've been easily had before, but you were so much more than that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Because it's not really mentioned in this standalone issue whatsoever, but
I never thought of that either.
Yeah.
Until rereading it, that I was like, you know, it's funny, we get hit kind of over the head that Barbara is Oracle and she is Batgirl, and the Killing Joke happened, and we see the Joker and the throwing stars and the bat doll and the bat symbol, but we never ever get any reference that Canary had a superpower and was stripped of it, and also dealt with being, you know, this kind of molestation-esque, you know, brutal attack upon herself. It's never even nodded at. So I always think that's a little interesting that we get like hit over the head with Barbara's, but we don't even mention Dinah's.
But the speech obviously is able to motivate her enough to get up and
nail Lynx.
Yeah.
Then the dam actually breaks, and we transition from the dam breaking and Lynx making her great escape to, again, another actual nod of the Killing Joke, with Oracle dreaming about the Killing Joke.
Yeah. But then I thought it was weird because, you know, Batty knows best as the Joker, and she's like, you know, in her little getup. And I should have known it was a dream because none of it really made sense. You know, and I was like, this is interesting, but it ends up all being a dream. But funny how your subconsciousness gets at you, and even stuff that's happening now, you know, Oracle, I need you, and it was just, I need you in her dream sequence. Yeah, Canary feels really bad that everybody died over flooded, or not everybody, but, you know, specifically some of the children.
So much of the village was decimated due to the sabotage of the dam. And this too is such a good illustration of the characterization of Canary and Oracle. Oracle is, and Oracle would be extremely affected by this too, but she's not in the field. She's not,
Yeah.
right there with the drowned bodies of these poor villagers. But Dinah is, and I like that you see that Dinah is so emotionally affected. Because Dinah often gives this air of like carefreeness, like even when, she's in the helicopter with, like Lynx and Nick, and she's just like flirting and batting around, like everything's, like, and she even makes jokes that, she's on vacation. Like everything's always really lighthearted with Dinah. But I like that you do see that as lighthearted as she pretends to be or is, that there is this very deep emotional side to Dinah.
Yeah. I mean, but it's so different being out in the field versus just sitting, quote unquote, at home and just being like, well, just do it this way. You're not here. You don't know what I'm seeing and what people are going through. It's so very different. And so I'm glad we actually get to see that. Because personally, I've also been in situations like that where I'm the one who's out in the field and someone else is trying to tell me, oh, well, just go ahead and do it. Like, it's the easiest thing.
Yeah.
Just pretend that you didn't see that. Just pretend that it didn't happen. And then the next thing we know, Oracle locates where Nick is.
Yep. And Nick and Lynx have moved on and are already scamming more countries.
Yeah.
They don't waste any time. No breather taken at all. They're just on to the next target. And Dinah interrupts the meeting, and she is fed up.
Yeah. She is kicking ass in this one. Those poor other guys are just like, oh, we're just going to leave.
I know, the poor countries that are, doing dealings with Nick, they're just like, we don't know what the hell's going on. There's this angry woman, and she's just kicking the crap out of everyone. We are going to get out of here before we're next.
But then, so Lynx seemed very powerful a few pages ago, and now all of a sudden, I don't know, just because Dinah's just like fed up with everything, that, she just has like this newfound power, or whatever's going on, but she's able to knock Lynx out like it was nothing.
Yeah, I'm gonna give more credit than I'm sure credit is due. And I'm gonna like to pretend that it is this, not only newfound power within herself, but the fact that she's so disgusted with the behavior of Nick and Lynx that she is, again, done playing game. She's done the lighthearted, like, I'm here to have fun and figure you guys out. They've now crossed a line, and she too has crossed the line with them, and just no more Mr. Nice Guy. I feel, like, is what we're supposed to be getting here, and not the fact that we need to tie up this, one issue story.
And then, of course, you find out that Nick is
not as a capable fighter as he likes to pretend. And that too, I like that it doesn't even come to blows. She literally just crunches his hand.
Yeah, and he's just like, oh, stop, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, he looks so pathetic compared to how he's been acting for the rest of the book. And then Oracle's trying to be like, he's not worth it, don't kill him, and she still gets her punches and kicks him.
Yep.
Because you know what? He deserves it.
He does. He does deserve it.
But I know you can definitely see that there's like a struggle with Dinah with the whole like, it's not enough just to have the cops come in and just take him away. Like there's something else needs to be done because of this. But she doesn't kill him, so we're still good. No killing, we're still keeping the Batman motto. And then this sort, to me, it's set up for the
next. It does. Okay, it does set up for the next standalone, which is Birds of Prey Revolution.
Yes. But everything ties up real nicely in the end. She's now in a brand new car, it looks like.
Yeah, Oracle is a big spender.
Right. It seems like all of the Bat family are big spenders.
That's true. But yeah, it's not a bad team up if you get with Oracle. She does seem to to buy all the team necessities. Supplies you with all the good stuff.
She does, just like this endless supply
I
of,
know.
of monies, which I want to know how she got all of that.
You know, I know it's mentioned in some book. I can't remember what book, and I don't know if it's Birds of Prey or Nightwing. But later down the line, in again, there's a crossover story between Birds of Prey and Nightwing, where, as we talked about in Batgirl Year One, you see Blockbuster, the brother of the Blockbuster we see in Batgirl Year One. He's a big villain in Bloodhaven, and somewhere in either Birds of Prey or Nightwing, it is mentioned that Oracle skims off the top of some of the villains she hacks. So, and I know Blockbuster is one of them. That's actually how the hunt for Oracle begins, because Blockbuster is starting to notice that someone is fiddling around with his assets and is not too happy about it. And that is one of the first times Oracle is almost exposed, and start, that people start to wonder who is Oracle and who is, watching the bad guys, and the bad guys start to notice. But yeah, that is where part of her money comes from. Some of the money is referenced before, that the Wayne Foundation in some way or funnels some money to her. But yeah, a lot of it in the early days was kind of nodded to, that she was a little bit playing Robin Hood and stealing from the bad guys and using it for good.
Yeah.
Which I kind of like. I know, and that's the one thing I like about Oracle. She's obviously a good guy. She's obviously on the side of the angels, obviously, a white hat, wearer. But she does have a very morally twisty job. She is kind of morally gray, even though she's very complicated. And and maybe that's why I relate to Oracle so much too. She's always in these situations where, if she were not such a good person, this could so turn badly really quickly. So she does do kind of morally questionable things, but because she is such a pure-hearted person, such a eye on the prize person, even her morally questionable stuff is still in such the greater good that it doesn't come off as questionable as if you just flat out said, oh, well, she steals from mobsters, like so yeah, I and it comes up, like, too, that's a reoccurring kind of theme. Like, I know you definitely get it in the first arc of Gail Simone's run, that Canary kind of, questions, like, you're willing to do kind of questionable things, and I know it's totally for the right reasons, but should we be willing to do that? And I, of course, side with Oracle. I'm biased, but I know Oracle is unturnable. I know she is so set in her ways and so fully aware of herself that she knows what she's doing, where anyone else, that is a tough question and a hard place to be, and they could be swept away with the power that they might have, where I know Oracle is so self-aware that she wouldn't go drunk with power and turn, into this, money grubbing kind of power hungry, like, I can take over the world. She's not going to become Lex Luthor. But
well, they could always write her that way.
They could.
Eventually. But yeah, as of right now, no.
And yeah, knock on wood, it's never happened yet, so 20-something years going strong. She hasn't turned yet. But yeah, I always like that kind of, like, that people do question, like, this could go to a really bad place if Oracle was anyone else. And I always like that, even Canary kind of questions, like, I get you're doing the right things, but are we actually doing the right things? Which I also find super ironic because Canary is constantly getting herself in bad situations. And so the fact that she's willing to question Oracle's methods, but like not her own.
Well, because you can always see the fault in others and not yourself. So
that's true. So yeah, that was the first standalone issue of Birds of Prey, which really opened the doors for female lead books and really was the crack in the dam, forgive the forgive the analogy there, that really unleashed, you know, the future of the Birds of Prey and the start of something, you know, truly never before seen. So as your first time reading it, and as knowing that this is the first true starting point of the Birds of Prey, what did you think?
Thought it was interesting. It was good to see Gaston show back up. I thought he was dead. But
I know I'm never going to be able to look at Nick again. He's no longer Nick Devine. He is Gaston.
He's Gaston now. Yeah, I don't know. It was a very good fitting, specifically for Canary, because she normally does deal with, you know, sort of the lower level. Again, she's not dealing with like the Riddler or the Joker or, you know, anything like that. It's very low end. Still has a very impact, you know, what Nick does is very
it's very
bad.
real.
But yeah, you know, like there's real damage to what he is doing, maybe not necessarily to the US, but, you know, to other countries.
It is it's really interesting because it's very real. And yet still very entertaining. Because this too, like, again, just one little turn down the wrong path and this book could be so boring so quickly. Because you're not, exactly as you put it, you know, you're not dealing with the Riddler or the Joker or, you know, any costume villain minus Lynx. And even she has no power. She literally is just this thematic mob queen, you know, like, so yeah, this book could be so boring so quickly, but again, bravo to Chuck Dixon for being such a strong writer, I guess, because he takes something that could be really, really boring, and not only with a bunch of kind of, you know, second string characters or what people easily assume are second string characters, with a made up, you know, business mogul bad guy and a D-list actual villain. And it is an actually entertaining book.
Yeah, because I read some of the other Canary miniseries. And were very boring for me, and I couldn't even get through the four issue.
The four issue.
I was Canary, like, nope, we need to read something else.
The Canary solo books predating Birds of Prey are hard.
They're rough. They're so rough.
Yeah, there are gleaming moments, but overall they're harder to read. But that's exactly why they only lasted 4 issues and 12. You know, they did not have long runs for a reason.
But yeah, this one, and this also did well. I can't remember if we mentioned it already, but this little standalone issue did so well, and that's why they created a second standalone
that's exactly
issue.
This book sold so well that it did tell DC that we have the ability to keep this as, you know, if not an ongoing, we have enough here that we can keep doing one shots or minis. And they did that. They had, you know, these showcases and one shots and the Manhunt mini, and then finally getting the Birds of Prey ongoing, which that too is, you know, you look at it, and again, we went from one standalone to an ongoing that lasted 120 something, I think 127, give or take. I can't remember the exact issue number, but over 100 issues for a female lead book. That is super impressive, and not big name. You know, this isn't Wonder Woman. You know, this isn't even Batgirl. You know, as much as I like to remind you that Batgirl was here, you know, this is Oracle and Black Canary and a bunch of B and C and sometimes D-list female characters. And it is so awesome that this book that kind of has the odds stacked against it in every way managed to
survive
for so long.
Yes, I mean overall I did enjoy it. It was interesting because I'd never actually read anything truly Canary based before, because I've always read stuff with her and Huntress and Oracle, you know, like together as a team. So just to have Oracle and Canary together, it was a very different dynamic. But I think it works really well. I mean, obviously it did, but for me personally, I still think it works really well. That you kind of have the brute strength and the recklessness of one, and the brains and the calm down. Let's think about this for a minute. But yeah, it was a very good introductory thing to read, unlike those standalone issues, unlike those other miniseries and whatnot. So I enjoyed this one, and it was just nice. Yeah, it was just nice. I just liked all of it.
Yeah, this is it's a really strong start. I could see why people caught on to it so easily. And too, just amazing too to also think about it. A book in the 90s that's female lead with C-list characters, and Batman's nowhere to be seen. No superpowers are used once. Not even powerful gadgets. This is a true kind of street level,
Yeah.
like it's really interesting that a superhero book managed to do nothing superhero-y.
Yeah.
Nothing over the top.
More so to show off Dinah's martial arts skills, I think, which is why we have links in it. And why, again, it works so well. Because, yeah, it just proves that to be a hero, you don't necessarily have to have, a ring or shape-shifting abilities or anything like that. You can still make a difference, even if you're just a normal human,
Yeah. Yeah, you can see the heart behind the book, that there is something different and special here that is clear evidence why it caught on and why it lasted as long as it did. Bravo.
Yes, very well done.
Alrighty, I guess we're at the end of our show. Thanks for joining us here at Clock Tower Files. As we said at the opening of our show, we are going to start cleaning house once I move into my my new clock tower. So we will be back on iTunes. We will probably be back on SoundCloud. We just won't have an ongoing catalog there. We'll probably just upload one episode at a time. We will be updating the Tumblr, the Twitter, and possibly even getting our own site depending on where we end up calling our new host. But feel free to contact us at any time on any of our social media. We are Clock Tower Files, and if you don't have social media, you can feel free to rate or comment us on iTunes or get at us directly at clocktowerfiles@gmail.com. This is Oracle signing out.
Bye, guys.